Indonesia remains on high alert amid more tsunamis. Our senior reporter Njanji Chauke was in Indonesia in October to cover the aftermath of the 7.5 magnitude earthquake in Sulawesi in Indonesia. He now joins us live in studio to talk about why Indonesia is prone to tsunamis. Njanji, thank you so much for making the time to join us.
Thank you.
What happened here? We keep asking the same question because obviously there's different perspectives.
Yeah, when you look at Indonesia, it's located in an area called the Ring of Fire. The Ring of Fire in the Pacific Ocean. We have countries like Indonesia, we have countries like the Philippines. It can even stretch as far as up to New Zealand. So in that area, in the ring fire, that area that looks like a horseshoe, if you can look at the screen there, that area that looks like a horseshoe, there's a lot of seismic activity, there are landslides, there are earthquakes. So every time there is some movement under the sea, you find that countries like Indonesia are really hit hard. As I speak to you, we know that this past year we've had 3 major disasters in Indonesia. I mean, in August we had an incident in the Lombok Island where 500 people were killed and 1,500 injured after a 6.9 magnitude earthquake. And then in September in central Sulawesi, we had another earthquake, a 7.5 magnitude earthquake that triggered a tsunami. We saw those shocking visuals where people were on holiday and they were swept away as they were preparing for a major event.
Yeah.
And now on the 22nd of December, just 3 days before Christmas, as a rock band was busy playing, as the music got higher, you see this massive wave coming into a building, sweeping people away, killing people, and leaving a trail of destruction.
Let's go back to your trip there in October. You were there with the Gift of the Givers. 2 things I want to ask you about. One, is the effort that organizations such as Gift of the Givers putting into such situations making any impact at all? Is it making a dent? But 2, having been there personally, what sort of conversations are being held about the possibility of removing people from these areas that are known to be problematic?
Yes, let's talk about the humanitarian mission of the Gift of the Givers. It was very difficult for Gift of the Givers to be granted access. But even if they assisted one person, you know, they are making a huge difference. We saw them arriving there with medical supplies, with water, medication, because as you know, whenever there's a disaster, the area becomes vulnerable to various diseases. As you know, that if bodies remain trapped under the mudslides, there's a possibility that we could have major diseases breaking out and all that. So their humanitarian mission, indeed, it did make an impact, even if the number of people that they help, they can't help everyone that has been affected by the disaster. And you'll recall that also there was a lot of red tape that the international NGOs were experiencing.
In terms of access.
Yes, were experiencing. And then coming to having been to Indonesia, when I look at Indonesia, especially that area, the Java Strait, it's very beautiful. It looks like an area where people were not supposed to live there. Almost, when I look at it,
it's like heaven.
It's like a jungle that was supposed to be left there. But as you know, as humans, we go and we live everywhere across the world, near the sea, near the ocean.
So and it speaks to the broader conversation of conservation.
Yes.
But Njanji Chauke is talking to us about his experiences in Indonesia in October. We have a little clip of one he compiled while he was there. Let's take a look at that before we continue with our conversation.
We had at least 2 sessions of Aftershocks. The first one happened around, I think it was just after 5 a.m. Local time. And then say about 5 minutes later, the second one was much longer. Everyone came out of their rooms.
Your memories of that time.
So you can see there, you know what, it's difficult to live in that area. Every day, going to bed in the early hours of the morning.
Wondering if you'll make it through the night.
Yes, you are woken by aftershocks or smaller earthquakes. And then, as you can see in that video, it was exactly one of those mornings in the early. It was around 4:30 to 5 in the morning. We were sleeping, and suddenly we had the ground shaking.
Yeah.
And obviously the instinct, you run for cover.
Yeah.
And as I was doing my stand-up there, because I had to make sure that I update our viewers back home. SABC were broadcasting to more than 50 countries across the world. So most of our viewers were really relying on reporters such as ourselves being there, even if it means I upload it onto social media or I record a story quickly and I load it via Facebook or onto Twitter.
Yeah.
So it was a typical morning where an aftershock hit and we had to run for cover. As I was doing my stand-up, it hit again.
Just at a personal level, the difference between reporting and feeling it, experiencing it yourself, what was that like for you?
It was quite shocking. I mean, and it stays with you for the longest time. Just 3 days ago, I was taking a shower at the gym. And there was a loud truck that was passing.
You've gone back to the gym.
Yes, that was passing near the gym, and then I heard this sound, grrr, and then I was like, "What's going on?"
That sense came back.
Yeah. Because what happened in Indonesia, it stays with you. Even no matter how much counseling you can get, it stays with you. You are scared of. You are now afraid of sounds, huge sounds next to you. And whenever the ground shakes or something, you think, it's an earthquake or something like that.
It's one thing to talk to officials who talk about their plans for how to avert these things and to speak to NGOs. But what was it like speaking to normal people there? Do they think it's as much as a fuss as we make it out to be, or are they like, you know what, this is our reality and we're good with it, kind of thing?
For the people there, it's home, sweet home. You know, I mean, they've lived there for the longest time. Their ancestors were staying there. I mean, Indonesia has been hit by tsunamis and disasters
multiple times.
Yeah, multiple times. Almost every year, there's some disaster in Indonesia and somewhere along the Ring of Fire. So for them, it's home, sweet home. And you saw in the videos that we got this morning as well, as soon as they're waiting for the aftershocks to stop or the waters to recede, people are saying that they're going to go back home.
Yeah.
You know, they're going to go back home. That's home, sweet home for them. That's their reality.
Indonesia has become one of the developing tourist destinations throughout the world. What can we tell South Africans who are thinking about going to vacation in Indonesia? How should they prepare? What should they be looking out for?
Obviously, if you look
because if you go on vacation, you want to return.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you look at an area like Java, it's a flashpoint. But if you go to places like Bali, a couple of years ago, we did have a massive tsunami that also affected that area. But in Bali, things are much better. It's a major tourist destination, and I bet you, as I speak to you right now, there are hundreds of South Africans that are probably in Bali because of its pristine waters. The ocean is crystal clear.
Yeah.
So anyone has to take the precautionary measures, you know. You can never prepare enough. I mean, I recall a movie from a number of years ago called 2012.
Yeah.
You know, watching that movie, every day I'm looking at this tsunami and earthquake itself. It's exactly what we saw in that movie. For some people it looked like fiction, but for the people of Indonesia, it's a reality. So you can never take enough precautions, because when a disaster like this hit, they advise you to run to higher ground, but you can never be fast enough.
Yeah.
When you look at nature, nature is bigger than us. I mean, look at the size of the waves that came in there and swept the homes away and killed people. Some as high as 7 meters.
Yeah.
That's quite huge.
You might not have an answer for me for this one, but you know, when I listen to the stories and I think of people like surfers whose biggest thrill is riding the biggest waves, is it possible to say to people, when these things happen, if you remain calm, you may survive. Is that part of the lessons that are those part of the lessons that are being taught to tourists and people coming into Indonesia?
I think the reality...
To say ride the wave kind of thing. I know it's silly,
yes,
but...
Yes, I think with the tsunami, the reality is that once the adrenaline kicks in, you can never remain calm.
Yeah.
You run for cover. You are running for your dear life. If I can just remind you, the speed at which tsunami waters travel on the sea surface is the speed of a jet plane. That's very fast. You can't keep up with that.
So you're surprised in a way?
Yeah, you're caught in surprise.
What were your biggest takeaways from your trip?
Speaking to people, ordinary people, that the little that they have, they appreciated the help that South Africans were offering or giving to them through the goods and services that was being offered by Gift of the Givers.
Yeah.
Home, whether you like it or not, your home is your home, no matter how hot it is or whether you're prone to natural disasters, that's your home. And then I think, but the other big issue that has been raised as a result of this series of disasters in Indonesia is the question of early warning systems.
I think
we're talking about the fourth industrial revolution. We really have to do something about the ramping up our early warning systems, whether it's in South Africa, in Indonesia, or elsewhere. Because the early warning systems, you know what they say, if there's an earthquake, they're so sensitive, those early warning systems can pick up the sound that is made by a chicken when it's feeding from thousands of
But they say those don't work that effectively in that particular ring of fire area that you're talking about, isn't it?
Yes, because of the character of that area. I mean, you're dealing with volcanoes, you're dealing with landslides, and then you're dealing with the terrain itself, the area the way it is itself.
And there's that area on the screen.
Yeah, that's the ring of fire.
Well, your thoughts about this particular tsunami?
I think the death toll is still going to rise. Obviously, the people of Indonesia are still going to need a lot of help. I mean, they still have not recovered from two major disasters in August and also in September. As they were trying to still recover, and then yet another one hit. I mean, what was happening there, that band playing, as the music got louder, it's like they were whipping up this tsunami. It's so surreal, people preparing for their Christmas, and then they are hit yet again by a disaster of this magnitude. Really
When
sad.
South Africans speak to you, because tsunamis are like a far-off idea for South Africans, especially the portion of South Africans who do not necessarily travel, how do you compare South Africa in an area such as Indonesia, where for us this might remain something we hear about and we might never get to experience?
We have our own disasters here at home. I mean, if you look at the road carnage, in the space of a week, we've got thousands of people that have been killed on our roads. South Africans are being told, don't drive too fast. Don't use your cell phone while driving. Jaywalkers are being walked. Don't walk on the highway. But people still do those things. So I suppose we do have our own disasters here at home.
Njanji, thank you so much for talking to us. And you raised the issue of Gift of the Givers. I suppose we should be calling them in to talk about a wrap of the work that they've done this year.
We are speaking to them on the 28th of December.
Stunning.
Just to give us a wrap.
Thank you so much, Njanji Chauke, is a colleague. And that's the show for today. Let's